Hello and welcome. Today I've got a very, very special guest, Tyron Ash. Some of you may have seen him already on the Channel 4 program Mega Mansion Hunters. So Tyron, welcome. Thank you very much to Property Bants and Rants. Now we're here to help and inspire the property industry. And Tyron, when I saw you in your program, I thought I've got to be speaking to that guy. And you very kindly agreed to sort of come onto the podcast. So I appreciate that, Tyron. So good morning.
My pleasure. Good morning, Tony. Yeah, absolute pleasure to be on here. And yeah, I mean, it's been a bit of a whirlwind last few sort of years. But to be honest, it's been something that in the background there's been a lot of hard work going on at it.
Yeah.
So I'm just happy that we're sort of getting that reach, and and it's certainly got onto people's radars at least.
Good. You're looking very healthy, Tyron. Just want to say that. Well done. Well done.
Thanks.
So, Tyron, I want to ask you quickly, what was your backstory? People may have seen it on television, but I want to know a little bit about tell us about what you do now, but tell us how you got to what you do now as well, please.
Absolutely. I think the main thing is that we're now kind of I haven't done an actual count, but maybe 150 agents across sort of the UK now starting to recruit into Dubai. So we launched in Dubai this week. We have every plan to make this an international and reputable luxury real estate brand. And to be honest, it's something that I'm extremely passionate about. I'm extremely passionate about that end of the industry. And it was the part of the industry that I always wanted to get into. Never really get into it properly. I started, I'm talking like sales negotiator in Bletchley High Street in Milton Keynes, £8.5 grand basic salary. I was earning £30 to £50 a sale. That is where I started, and that's where I worked for a number of years. And I worked my way up to senior negotiators, to manager, area manager, to all these different positions. And I just, as much as I was picking up a few company cars along the way and all that sort of stuff, I just couldn't achieve what I wanted to achieve. And I was looking, and I went on holiday to America, just like with a girlfriend at the time, and I was in Florida, and I saw this like 30-foot billboard with a real estate agent's face on it. And I thought, God, how the hell is that guy doing the same job as me? And he's got a billboard with his face on it. I'm making about £1,300 a month. So it was very like a bit of I'll never forget that. It was probably the only memory I took from that holiday. And it stuck with me a long time. My frustration, I've always been it's probably people tell, I'm a very direct and almost, I would use the word extrovert with regards to how I approach business and my marketing myself, but that can also fall over into the wrong areas, and where I was getting frustrated, I wasn't getting the answers I wanted. I couldn't find the career route I wanted. I went down a very bad path. I started mixing with the wrong people. I was trying to make fast money. I was always working with but I was making money on the side how I shouldn't have made money, and I ended up getting caught for drug dealing at the time, which was, I mean, we're going back a long time now, probably about 12 years, 10 years, but like, I paid the price for it, 2 years in prison, the ultimate price. And that taught me a lesson that I don't think anything could ever teach me. It taught me a lesson of not only just learning myself, so how much something like that impacts and hurts the people around you, your family. That was the real punishment. It wasn't actually the time. It was how much it hurt the people around me. That made me really start learning how to channel my energy in the right way, because the energy was always high, but it was being channeled wrong. And then I started learning more about business. I started learning more. I tried to research companies that could satisfy what I wanted in real estate. And then I kind of got some nearly companies. I spent some time with some good companies after that period. But what I wanted didn't exist. And actually, I wanted a fully self-employed role, completely in the luxury end of the market. I know I've had a few companies now who have completely imitated us, but that's always going to happen. And it doesn't. It's actually quite flattering. But
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But the reality is that we are probably in that sector, because when you take out the high street brands and the household names you see on the high street, which they're very different payment structures, they're all lower salary, low commission, which is all fine if that's what someone wants to do. But ours is commission only. It's a big commission on a big fee. very much the American, the Australian, or even the UAE kind of angle. And it works very well. And we've now grown to a very, very good size across the UK. We've got hundreds and hundreds of listings we've sold. And we're a household name in the luxury end of the market. Yeah.
Yeah, but you did all this in a short period of time because you're 33, aren't you? Is that right?
I'm a bit older now. I'm 37 now. I think
37, but you're a young guy, but you've done it all very quickly, haven't you? Really, and you've taken on the big brands, haven't you? Really, to do that luxury end.
Oh, absolutely. That was always my my thing is, and I'm doing exactly the same thing in Dubai. Is that I look at a market and all I do is I analyze its weaknesses and then I exploit them, and that's how I go about it. So even with like the high street brands, yes, you've got brands that have been there for 50 years, 60 years, however long, 100 years, maybe some of them, but like that doesn't mean just because they've been there that long that they're not vulnerable to change, because the whole industry or the whole world is changing every day. We're talking about, fast-paced marketing. We're talking about, bringing in buyers from social media platforms. We're talking about, things that just were unimaginable 10 years ago are happening. And I'm thinking, well, if that's where it is now, where another 10 years? And frankly, it's the people who pioneer and spearhead the change. They're the ones that capitalize. And that's how I look at it. I think that there's no reason for high street offices to exist anymore. I think that if I was a multi-million-pound seller, the last thing I'd be doing is be popping into your office next to the post office. It just wouldn't happen. And as much as it's good to get a few brokers together to work together in an office, I feel we've got enough technology, we've got enough means and ways to make business trackable, recordable, accessible, and successful without chaining everyone to a desk on the high street. That's
That's fascinating. I want to do another podcast with you to get that information, to find out more about you. But I want to ask you a little bit about what do you think the biggest hurdles are for sales at the moment? What do you reckon the biggest two issues are for the market? Well, your market, you've got a slightly different market, haven't you? But for your market.
Same market, because and I'm not sure you'll like the answer, but it's not something you actually have control of. But I actually think the conveyancing system in the UK, and I know you're one of the companies that are really trying to fast track that process and make it a better, slicker process.
Yeah.
But with the barriers that are created by our actual system itself, makes it extremely frustrating. I mean, I'm not saying that every other country's perfect, because they're not, but there are. I mean, I'll give you Dubai for an example, because that's just a market I've had to research. And once someone makes that decision to buy a property, they give you a check for 10%, and that's locked in, and they've got to complete on the sale, and that could go in 36 hours. Now,
wow.
And quick it is. I mean, yes, it might take another week or two. It never goes really over 2 weeks. And we've got sales that if a buyer decides to delay the process, or a buyer decides he wants to go on holiday, or a buyer decides that he doesn't want to finance it anymore, or whatever it might be, even if it's locked in as much as we can lock it in, there is no consequence for a buyer pulling out on a sale. And that is absolutely mind-blowing, because I think any estate agent or even conveyancers that are looking after their clients, how soul destroying must it be for someone who's got all their belongings packed up in boxes, ready to go, probably started booking their kids into schools, probably started
100%, yeah.
And then the buyer just wakes up one day and goes, I don't want to buy this house anymore. And the whole thing falls flat on its ass. And it's like, how is that a system that works? It's not. It just not. And the only way that's going to change is right at the top. It's not going to change with the company. It's going to change with a decision. A decision or decisions need to be made at the top, so the whole system changes, and that is a massive thing to do. And I just don't know how that's going to happen. So that's the first one. Sorry, it's elaborative a little.
Well, let me ask you. I want to pick up on that, because this is probably Bants and Rants, right? So actually, that drives me mad, because I was an agent. That's how I started off. I was an estate agent.
Oh yeah.
So it's crazy how agents. When I was an agent, I didn't like lawyers. And and there's lawyers. Some, not all of them. Not all of them. Sometimes I don't like agents. So it's a matter of just, why don't we collaborate? Because it's mental. Because
Yeah,
clients want to move, right? And we're all here just for clients. That's really, we're all here just for that. So why don't we
absolutely.
just move them? And why don't we just work together rather than argue with each other all the time? Because
Yeah,
that's what happens a lot. It's just like really mental. So I
yeah.
agree with that 100%. Now, let me ask you a quick question just about that. Reservation agreements. Do you use those? Or do you think they will make a difference or not?
Well, we've incorporated some. Basically, if it becomes like I know, and again, it's if it becomes a deposit,
Mm.
it becomes an absolute nightmare, as you probably know,
Yeah.
because as soon as it's a deposit, then what happens is usually the solicitor will want to get involved and start drafting up another contract.
Yeah.
Will add like weeks onto the process, and if you never end up getting the deposit done because
Yeah.
so there's like another contract done attached to like a $5,000 deposit or something is mental.
Yeah.
Where if you look at how developers reserve properties, they take reservation fees. We will often reservation fee of like £1,000, and that's just to really cover an owner or to cover an owner for their legal expenses or
Mm.
something if the person pulls out. But again, it's like I feel like this is a process that this is a process we're trying to help everyone involved with. It's not something is being rolled out across the country, so it's a hard thing to execute completely.
Mm.
But I feel like something that got people in should be there. I really do believe that. I
Yeah.
feel should be a consequence to people pulling out. But then, there are many factors attached to that, because what you've got is, say, for example, the mortgage. The second answer to your question was the mortgage market is causing a massive amount of problems, because suddenly someone's getting an agreement in principle, then the lender's coming in and they're literally making it impossible for the mortgage offer to get issued. They're asking for like crazy information from like accounts from so long ago, or their
Mm-mm.
deposit, or they're down valuing the house, and they don't want to lend the money. And the reason being is that it's all being lent on really, really, questionable bonds, and it's all being lent on really high interest rates, and it's
Mm.
making it impossible for people to unless they're literally whiter than white.
Mm.
It's hard for them to get mortgage deals. So, how do you hold a buyer accountable for that? So it's six of one, half a dozen of the other.
So imagine Tyrone, for you to. So what do you do about that? What do you do to make sure you control those things which are a little bit outside your control, aren't they? Once you
Yeah.
get to someone.
I think the key thing is it's the preliminary. So, for example, I think one thing that estate agents are extremely guilty of is they're very quick to book a deal. So
Mm.
what they'll do is they'll go, oh, a guy sends an email and says, I want to offer you 2 million quid. Vendor accepts it. Yes, I've sold a house. You haven't sold a house. You're nowhere near selling the house. So the first thing we do is we have like a bit of a checklist. The checklist is ideally we want some sort of a commitment or reservation fee, maybe a couple of grand, just something that they will receive back in writing to say they'll.
Sorry, just put that in perspective. A couple of grand for your type of. What's your average price of
I mean,
property?
it's our average sale price last year was 1.8 million.
Right. Okay. So what I'm saying is, a couple of grand is not much in
No,
comparison to the prices you're dealing with.
I mean, or something like that. But
Yeah.
here we are. We're trying to do something that's not
Yeah.
breaking the boundaries of.
But the reason I mentioned that, Terence, because there's been a lot of research saying that when people leave, even 600 quid, now
Yeah,
it wouldn't work in your way, but 600 quid, psychologically, they're more into that. They don't want to lose 600 quid or whatever, a couple of grand. They don't want to lose it. So actually, the fall throughs with that top reservation agreement actually drastically reduces.
yeah,
So even though it's a minimal
yeah.
deposit, really.
I think that's absolutely right. I think some sort of commitment with anything. It's like if you go to a car garage and you say, "Oh, I want to buy that Ferrari," then they take your word for it. Put a deposit down. Do you know what I mean? You
Yeah.
rent a house, you can't rent the house and start the paperwork until you've put a deposit down,
Mm.
or a reservation down. So these are all things that are all very, very present in all areas of buying and selling in other areas. But then in property, which is the largest asset most people will ever pay in their life, it's just being like, oh, I'll take your word for it. I'll let
Mm,
you build up £500 of solicitors' bills and pull out of a £3 million sale. It's
mm,
nuts, and it messes people around, and it really, that's where the animosity builds, because an estate agent will blame a
mm.
lawyer will blame an estate agent, but it's the system that's making it difficult for us to work together. And that's the reality. Now, I'll tell you now as well, there are also some very, very negligent people in both areas. There are some solicitors that we've come into contact with who are exceptional, and they speed the process up. They have the knowledge, they know how to get around problems, they're problem solvers, they're solution providers. These are the people that stand the test of time in conveyancing. And then you get the people who get up and they try to make the deal about them. So what they'll do is they go, oh, I'm protecting my client, and they'll add in another 6 months of work for something they could have solved very, very quickly. And these are the ones that we clash with. It's the ones that are trying to make a name for themselves in the deal instead of speeding the process up. Now, that's a grey area we're going into, and I know there's some things that can't be avoided, but I do feel there are some conveyancers that are looking for problems as opposed to solutions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that the lawyers, the regulator says that we've got to be outcome focused. So what's the client's outcome? Our client's outcome is to actually buy the property.
Yes.
That's what we all should have. All should be focused on that, and it drives me mental as well as an agent and also as a lawyer when we're not getting that sort of collaboration from everyone, because that's really what we need. But essentially, Tyrone, what you do is, I think what you're going to say is you control the conveyancing as much as you can, and you control the financial services. You put it onto people that you know and trust because you know they're going to give your clients a great service. Is
Yeah.
that right?
The quick checklist we'll do for anyone that's kind of booking deals is don't book your sale until they've paid their searches. The searches have been applied for by the
Right.
conveyancer. Make sure that the mortgage valuation is booked in and they've got an agreement in principle. And if you can take some sort of a reservation fee as opposed to deposit, and then just put in some sort of a contract into your terms that you return that, then that's a pretty good thing to do. And I know a lot of agents that are doing that, try and seal some sort of skin in the game from that person. But
Yeah.
that's as good as you really do, until then you have to almost release it into the property god's hands and hope that it can.
But I agree with you 100% because it is when I was an agent as well. You've got to control the deals because we're all, as I said before, we're all here to move the client. So
Yes.
if we can just get as much great people working, helping that client along to get them moved, that's what we really need to. Because you don't get paid, we don't get paid unless the client actually moves. Because the client, they're not going to pay us just for getting offers in.
No.
They pay us because they want to actually get that offer in and get it completed.
Yeah.
So 100%.
I think the reason it grates on the system a little bit is because it's not like someone. I use the example of like purchasing a car. If
Yeah.
someone purchases a car or doesn't buy that car they want, their life kind of still goes on. Do you know what I mean? They'll find a way around it. When you've got people moving families, moving schools, moving areas, packing up all their stuff that's been in the house for 10 years, and then they wake up one morning and go, they want to reduce their offer by 20% or they want to pull out. It's disgraceful that it can be done to people, and I don't like it. And quite frankly, people will sleep at night knowing they've messed a whole family around on a sale, or a family has messed a buyer around, like vice versa. And there's no consequence to that. How is there not a consequence to that? It's nuts. And that for me is completely unacceptable. And that should be taken right to the top. That should be in Parliament. That should literally be getting sorted out in Parliament. It's one of the biggest problems that this country has.
Well, there's some stats. Last year, fall throughs cost £1 billion worth of fall through last year. £1 billion worth of fall. You can imagine all the fees associated with that.
Yeah, I reckon we'd have had a few in there.
Half of those were it just needs 2 properties from you, Tyrone. That would be all of it. I've got loads to discuss with you, right? I have to, if you don't mind, I have to do a part 2 with you. But I want to ask you a quick question because I know you very kindly joined us. You're going to Dubai and you kindly joined in, so I'm going to let you go. But I want to ask you a quick question. What's the one thing that you got that cost you under £100 that you can't do without? That you think everyone should go out? Got to buy it because that's really changed my life, improves my life, makes me better. What would you recommend to everyone?
Brilliant. It's a great question, and I'll actually say it's the hat that I'm wearing. I know it sounds silly because it's advertising, but honestly, if I'm not going to do my hair and get all fancy when I go out, I'll put my hat on because when I'm like, I'm in a networking game. That's the reality. I'm in a networking game. So I go to places, spend all my time in places where there are wealthy people, and that's all I do every day. And when I've got a hat on that sparks a conversation, the amount of business I've picked up just by someone looking at me, I forgot I've got my hat on, and they go, "Oh, you're in real estate. What's your company about?" And then boom, we're doing business. I picked up a guy just business for 50 million in a beach club, and now I'm taking him out to buy property next week.
Fantastic.
So the main thing is making sure you, and there's something showing people what you are and who you are very quick, quite cheap to do, and it's also, it doesn't look too bad if you color coordinate it with what you're wearing.
I like it. You always color. I know you like cutting a smart line as well. So I just want to say, Tyrone, thank you very much. I want just a couple of the things that I think Tyrone really embodied for me is, first of all, is really, you can tell he's a really hard worker. Okay, so I can see that from when you were a kid, you're a hard worker, and sometimes you went around the wrong path, and sometimes people just need guidance. But the other thing I'll just say is you obviously had very clear goals. And goal setting is important, imperative for everyone, right? But you've worked hard, and you're on your way to your goals. You should see the goals that I think a lot of people think that's my lifetime goals. But knowing you, I'm sure you've got loads of other goals that you want to achieve. I'll just say hard work, goal setting, imperative. I can see that you're always thinking about business, and you were talking about the need to change, and I think that's absolutely true. I think Charles Darwin, I can quote Charles Darwin now. He's the people that survive are not the strongest. They're the people that adapt to change.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because that, especially with all this AI coming in, the world's going to, as you said, Tyrone, the world has changed massively, and it's going to keep changing massively.
Oh, I think the people that get caught are the ones that moan about it. Like if change is happening, it's going to happen with or without you. So you may as well try and be at the forefront of what's going on, and that way you can actually benefit from it and you can help people with it. If you moan about it, then you're just going to get caught with your pants down. And
great.
And I think the one bit of advice I'd give with anyone, hard work is something that is a cliche that's thrown around at the moment. The problem is information now is so fast and so quick for us. Whereas you remember when I said, I was looking for a business to be able to do, and then I couldn't find one, or I couldn't find how to do business, or whatever it might be. Well, now on YouTube, you can get 1,000 videos on it, and it's quick and it's free. And what I'm saying is, because of the way that information is so quickly absorbed by us, unfortunately, what has reduced is people's work ethic to stick to a task. That's got our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. So now people are, I tried real estate. It wasn't for me. It's like, you did it for
apologize for some of that language. Sorry.
But like, you can bleep that one out. But like, concentrate on the task. And by adapting, that doesn't mean keep changing what you want to do every day, because you're never going to get anywhere. It means focus on your task, tweak your approach slightly every time, but keep the work going in that direction. So if you have to change something slightly, it's still to go to the same goal. It's not to just go, I tried real estate, I didn't sell a house in 3 months, right, I'm going to quit. It just means there's a few areas of real estate you're not doing correctly. Could be prospecting, could be closing, could be your meetings, could be all these different things. And that's how you get successful at something. You keep tweaking. And just to finish on that, if you look at some statistics, I always look at the champions and the winners of this world. Kobe Bryant, who's one of the greatest basketball players of all time, he also holds the record for the most missed shots in the whole of the NBA. And he was one of the greatest players ever. So his goal was only the goal, and he just kept tweaking and practicing, and then that's how he got it. And that's my approach with real estate.
Tyrone, amazing. You've been an absolute smashing guest, and I'd love to have you back on. So I'm going to let you go because I know you're going to catch a flight, but I appreciate your time. Thanks, Tyron.
Thanks, Tony. Pleasure.
See you later.